Hello and welcome to At the 55, your home for OUA football. Me and Tom are back on the mic here to talk all things football Ontario with an outstanding guest. So, Tom, how the heck are you doing, my friend?
Once again, I am always doing well when we have such an amazing guest on the program here. He's turned into a very good friend of mine, somebody that I deeply admire and is a beacon of positivity for the football community here. JT, Director of Culture and Sports for Football Ontario, joins the program. How are you doing, sir?
I am blessed. So thank you so much, Tom and Zach, for inviting me here today and just enthused to have a insightful and just thought-provoking conversation.
That's always the case when either of us get the pleasure of speaking with you. We've both had the pleasure of being on your show Inside the Huddle. You and I first connected, golly, 2.5 years ago, getting you on to this show to talk about your book in terms of You Are Greatness and that journey you were on at that point in trying to promote greatness. And I know there's so much going on in the football Ontario scene, and we're gonna get there. But I want to start going back to that moment with you make this move from teaching into becoming a speaker and trying to this pursuit of greatness in your time now, these years of you on this journey of helping people discover that greatness. What would you say? And don't give away any too much free content here. But what have you learned in that time of just talking with so many people, so many great guests you get on your show, getting to pull these secrets of what makes people great, what is greatness, this sort of esoteric idea. What are some of the takeaways that you've learned in this time that you've been working on that project, in addition to all the things you're doing at Football Ontario?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first thing that comes to mind is this idea that, whether we call it success, whether we call it greatness, excellence, it looks different for different people, and that's okay, right? And coming from the world of education, we have sometimes been taught and trained to think the other way that, success, excellence, greatness has to look a certain way, like there's only one path to it. But it really is something that when you give yourself permission to explore that, when you give permission, like what's really important, meaningful, relevant for me, it takes you on a wild journey, right? And that success, that greatness, that excellence is like you find it, and it's one of the most freeing journeys that I'm a believer that you can ever be on. Um, in terms of thinking of the many conversations I've had, I think back to the intention when I first started the huddle. It was really to talk with, interesting people from the world of sport and coaching. And probably the biggest takeaway is success leaves clues. Like it's really easy to look at people and go, okay, yeah, we see them on social media. We see those highlight reels. We see this like polished, put together. It's like the family picture, right? Where you see the family of four smiling, but you don't always get to see what was happening before then. The son is running around the room crazy. The daughter's having the meltdown. Maybe mom's yelling at dad to like, you got to do this better. But it's really that idea of success leaves clues. It's not so much like studying what successful people do, but really about studying how they think. And again, from many of these conversations, it's interesting how these successful, these high quality, these high performers, they just have a different way of seeing the world. And that difference of thought and different ideas is really what puts them on this journey to be successful in the game of life.
Mhm. Speaking about that, and obviously we talk about there's clues exactly like you said, how people live their life and how people do and how they get to the position where they deem as successful. I'm wondering, as you started this up in 2019, the idea of success and what that means, how has that changed for you? Because I know certainly for myself personally, when I was going through coming out of university and trying to do a whole bunch of things, my success personally was I have to get to the end. I have to be the most successful person. I have to be, have the great job, have the house, have the whatever else. And then COVID happened And then my idea of success was I got through this day. I, as an extrovert, got through a day without seeing anybody and I still feel okay. Like my idea of success completely changed because of that. And obviously that's an extreme example, but I'm wondering if your idea of success and what that means changed from when you started your journey in 2019 specifically to now.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as you say that, it's a great reminder that, this journey, this success journey, this journey to greatness, this journey of excellence, it is a lifelong journey. Like you'll never be done. That's like the cool part, right? And I know for myself, I don't think I really understood that before I started, navigating this journey. And I'll sort of reference a time where I kind of realized that I was challenging the status quo. I was challenging what success, what greatness, what excellence looked like. And it was a very like aha, big takeaway where the light bulb went on. It was in 2019. I had put in my resignation with the school board, I think around late July, early August. In that process, we had sold our house. We had moved cities from London back to the GTA. And it was really just an opportunity to really just change your physical environment. And anyone that travels knows sometimes the best thing you can do is change your physical environment, get away from just what's safe and comfortable. And it was September 27th, I remember. And the reason I remember that date is our house had just closed, the sale. So I remember it was late morning. I'm walking back from the park because I just finished a workout in the park. It's a beautiful fall day. It's like 25. It's sunny, and I'm walking back, and I sort of get hit with this sense of like a smile, some joy, and I'm just like, huh, this is interesting. And I started to like go in my head. So it's interesting. Here I am walking back from a workout. I feel great. Energy's high. Enthusiasm for life's great. Physically, mentally, emotionally, I feel great. And I'm walking back and I'm like, it's interesting because by society standards, I have just given up a safe and comfortable career teaching, which I was good at. I am no longer a homeowner. I had also decided to get in this sort of minimalist stuff and sold my car to my brother because I didn't need it because I didn't have a job to go to anymore. There was really very little income, coming in, maybe a few little passion projects here and there. And it was interesting that by society standards, no job, no house, no car. And there was like this sense of joy, this calm and peace that, you know what, life's going to be okay. And I just remember that was one of those moments where I started understanding that success, greatness, excellence in life can look however damn well I please, and that's okay. So that was definitely a moment where it opened my eyes, and I think it just put me on this ongoing journey to just understand who I am beyond, JT, the teacher, the coach, right? The speaker, the dad, the husband, right? Like who am I at my core?
Yeah, I think being able to break free and change paradigms is such a powerful thing. And looking at the title you hold with Football Ontario, going back to those multifaceted components of you, director of culture and sport. There's some big words in there when we think about culture and sport and Football Ontario. And you have an amazing team you work with. Of course, shout out to Aaron Giesler and everyone doing their thing there with you, and so many people making this game, really putting it at a special place in our province. When you think about that title of having that piece of culture in there, when you talk about the way that we define our roles, the way that we think about certain expectations, all these different aspects from a social standpoint, what does that title mean to you in terms of the impact you can have in that position in Football Ontario?
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting, right? We live in a world, it's acknowledging the fact that we live in a world that has trained us and conditioned us to value titles. And that's okay. Like that's part of the world, right? Like director of culture and sport. It sounds, important, but I really do think the title is designed in a way to remind myself and remind others what's really important, right? Director of Culture and Sport. It's a reminder and acknowledgement that we will always do our best to put people first, the sport second, which, is an interesting dynamic considering one of the roles and responsibilities in my portfolio is high performance sport, right? So you have someone who is very clear that at the end of the day, we will always strive to put people first. And then by putting people first, then we can make decisions on what's best for the sport. So it's full of ebbs and flows. But I think really what helped get some perspective on why it's not director of sport and culture was really just on this journey that I had to during my own journey. I had to release a lot of these titles that this professional world, this 3D world had given me, teacher, coach, all these things. And being away from sport for 2.5 years really helped me to understand that at the end of the day, this is what matters, right? Like loving people is really what matters in his life. If you strip this all away, you strip away the job titles, you strip everything away. At the end of the day, loving on both of you right now, giving you my full time and energy is really what matters, right? Yes, sports connect us, taught us some great things, but really it's about the people.
There's a reason why I said a beacon of positivity in that introduction there, and I think that sums it up very, very nicely. Even taking one step back from that, what was it about the Football Ontario opportunity that drove you so much to it in this aspect? And then while you're in there, how do you take this idea of greatness and success and just loving of people and implement it into an entire sport across an entire province that has so many moving parts?
Yeah. That's a great question. I feel like if we were to dissect that, we could probably fill 2 hours just by dissecting that. But first, I guess, in terms of how did this opportunity come about, the interesting thing is when our CEO, Aaron Giesler, got appointed, I remember seeing it on social media. I remember seeing it on Facebook. So Aaron and I had first connected in 2013. It was when he was at Football Canada. He actually was the lead facilitator for a safe contact training. And it was interesting that, I just, again, loving on people, I saw Aaron, hey, I haven't really connected with him outside of that. Just sent him a message, hey, congratulations on the new opportunity. And that was it. And from there, that sparked some conversation. Aaron and I actually had a conversation about me coming on and maybe us working together in a leadership consulting opportunity. And then the reality was it just wasn't in the cards, right, at the time. And hey, I felt a little disappointed, right? Like again, you both being highly ambitious, high quality athletes and coaches, you know what it's like, right? We have big dreams. And when those dreams don't happen, that disappointment's a little bit, is natural. Fast forward, there's an opportunity with the first, it was called the Ontario Football Mega Clinic at the time. It was virtual. It was right in that, craziness of 2021. And Aaron and I spoke. He said, hey, would you be willing to come on and do like a 30-minute talk? And it was titled Win the Effortless Way. So it was all around, this idea of, how do you actually win? It was around this idea of clarity, calm, confidence, right? All these sort of human side of things. And from there, continue to explore the journey. October of 2021, opportunity comes up. Director of sport comes up, and it was a new opportunity with Football Ontario. Aaron said, here's what it is. It's part high performance. It's part coaching, education, and development. It's part community partnerships. What are your thoughts? And from there, we had a conversation of what it could look like. And as cliche as it is, went all in on it. And most importantly, checked with my better half at home. She was supportive of it. And then here we are, fast forward, and it's just been this ongoing process of just growing the sport together and doing our best to serve the mission of football for all.
And what a job you've done in that effort. And this being, we're on the cusp of June. We're coming off of such a busy time for football Ontario and football in Ontario, amazingly in the off season of so many of the sports. OSFL is just kicking off, but obviously high school is months away. The U sports season's months away. But as far as the what we have right now and all the efforts that you and your teams and the various people putting in the work right now have been building towards, Tom was setting up from the jump. We have, as of today, of course, the release of the 2024 Canada Cup roster for this upcoming summer's events. Talk to us. Take us through this process. Obviously, we know you do a number of ID camps, a lot of steps involved in getting to this. Everyone gets so excited when they see this list announced, but kind of to that point, that the metaphor you made of the family photo, it's like, well, what goes beyond just seeing this list of amazing names? And, I certainly still having a lot of love for London football, see a lot of names on that list that make me smile bigger than I normally do. But take us through that process. Obviously, this is a great list of names, the stars of today and future stars of tomorrow at the various levels that they will no doubt aspire to keep growing towards. What's this process been like?
Yeah, absolutely. And before, we dive into the process, I think it's important as we talk about our high performance programming, our Team Ontario pathways, whether it's men, women's, flag, tackle, all of this isn't possible without other strong and powerful leaders that help us out, whether that is our Team Ontario coaches, whether that's the Team Ontario support staff, whether that's our student athletes, whether that's our administrators, whether that's the parents, whether it's our community partners that host us at all these events, right? I mean, you guys were at East West a few weeks ago at Waterloo, right? That's not possible if we don't have, schools like Waterloo, Carleton, York, McMaster, St. Andrews College, right? That are stepping up and wanting to host. So I really want to take a moment just to acknowledge all the amazing people that have really helped make it happen, right? Because without them, we're not having this conversation. But in terms of where this process started, I mean, we just announced 2024. We're already in the process of already having conversations around this idea of, okay, what does 2025 look like? And this is with our coaches, with our administration. So it's kind of a year-long process, right? We're constantly refilling the cupboard. But in terms of the process, it starts from today. Then it fast forwards. It's in November and December when we're having conversations with our coaches about, okay, this is what the pathway looks like. Who's out there, who needs to be part of this process, what student athletes do we need to connect with, what families, what OSFL, what high school coaches do we need to connect with, and just help share that information, right? Because really at the end of the day, you need as much buy-in from the local community, because at the end of the day, you both have coached, right? They're the gatekeepers, right? If they are not supportive of your process, you're going to be limited what kind of success, what kind of student athletes you can bring into the process. So again, it's starting that off, sort of figuring out, in January and February, we start off with our 3 ID camps. And those 3 ID camps, we do our best to spread them out. We do one in the south, one in central, one in the east. And the whole idea is, it's along this idea of football for all, right? But part of that we understand is making it more accessible, right? And a big part of accessibility is removing financial barriers. Because the more you remove financial barriers, the more accessible programming becomes. Another cool thing, which many people don't know, is we actually work with some of our partners in the north. Perfect example. He actually just sent me a text today. Coach Tom Anna at Cora in the Sioux. We actually have our leaders in the Sioux that work with our Team Ontario coaches to identify and shortlist student athletes who they feel would benefit from the experience, that would be good fits, and they actually bypass our ID camps. They have the opportunity. So we set aside 10 of those spots and we bypass them, so those families don't have to travel to ID camps in January and February, and then they can come right to development camp. So again, those little bridges that people don't always see, right? And again, we're grateful for great coaches, in different parts of the province, like Coach Annette, who help make this process more inclusive for us. Also within there, we're doing high performance fundamental sessions where we are, again, this idea of building the whole student athlete, where we are doing sessions where we're doing things on speed and power 101, right? We'll bring in a coach, an expert coach to just, again, provide them some context of how they can get better. We've brought in nutritionists. We've brought actually Timo alum. We had Alonzo Adai, we had Chris Usikusi come back in and share their experience. And then, we brought in Kwame Osei and Dylan Elias to come talk about their experience of becoming leaders in the Indigenous space, right? So we really try to just bring in a whole different perspective, and just show them that football is what connects us, sports connects us, but so much bigger than this. And then from there, I think this year we had about 1,200 student athletes in the process to start, which is, again, massive, right? Just growth, 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 growth. From there, we moved on to development camps in phase 2. Those include also some high performance academy sessions where we're starting to integrate more football into the process. Tom, I know you came by our development camp at McMaster. And again, it was a full day camp. It's just an opportunity. We kind of give our students, athletes, and the families kind of a taste of what a 2-day. And I know both of you have been through many 2-a-days. Kind of just want to give them a taste of what life could look like, right? You put them in a university setting. You put them in one where multiple practices, multiple meetings, and we're just trying to show is this something you could see yourself in? And part of us partnering with the universities is we want to just give them the true university experience. The other benefit, which I think sometimes parents often comment, it is part of giving them exposure, right? Getting them exposed to university coaches, right? Like we want to make this an inclusive process where, hey, you're part of the Team Ontario process. We're going to do our best to get you in front of all 11 OUA schools. If you make it through the end, hopefully all 27 U Sport schools at the very least, we'll get you in front of the CJFL coaches. We're now starting to have some interest from, NCAA schools that are starting to ask about our student athletes. And that sort of the next step was Red Black, right? And again, you guys were there at East West. It was the week before, and that just brought together the top 90. And from there, again, it's giving that true university feel, right? We talked about this being a business trip. You are this is a 36-hour job edition, right? This is a business trip. So you have to highlight your gifts, your talents, and your abilities, but also show us that you can handle traveling to the other side of the country, being away from, mom, dad, and your loved ones. And can you be in this, highly demanding, high pressure situation, see what it's about. So it's kind of like these whole ideas. And as we describe this, it kind of just reminds that we're just through the process, giving them opportunity to just get a taste of what life could be like. And from there, they get to make a decision. Like, do I love football? Do I want to continue to pursue it? Do I like football and kind of like, or maybe they kind of get, you know what, I really don't like football this much. I think I'm going to try something else, which again, all 3 pathways, great pathways. But again, it's that idea of what does success, what does greatness, what does excellence look like to you?
Mm-hmm. It always makes me smile whenever you put, regardless of the industry, regardless of anything else, when you put someone who has a love for either, in this case, the game and of people or of the situation, the trade, whatever it is, and people, and you see all of these red tape situations start to fade away and you start to see bridges being built where there was dams instead. And it just makes me smile from ear to ear listening to all of the initiatives and all of the things that you have done in your brief time with Football Ontario. And even since then, just over the past 3 or so years, the growth that we've seen from the organization, that we've seen 1,200 student athletes for a Team Ontario showcase is outstanding. And I'm really interested to see, because we've talked so much about the process and what it means for the student athletes, the actual Canada Cup, where we're going and Ontario is representing. Obviously, the 3 of us are a little invested in our home of Ontario here, but in that sense, and to you specifically, what does success look like at the Canada Cup?
Yeah. At the end of the day, what it comes down to is an opportunity to be there during that gold medal game in the fourth quarter, playing for a gold medal, and you just have the opportunity, right, to really bring it home. That to me, and when I think back to, the amazing coaches and leaders that we have from a Team Ontario perspective. Like I look at our U18 staff, just a wealth of lived experience, both as their own student athletes, as coaches, seeing just their ability to just communicate. Like if anyone has an opportunity, and again, I know, both of you have seen some of our coaches in action, but they're just such great communicators, right? They're great teachers, and they know how to take these concepts, but that actually maximize the potential of our student athletes. And when I think of our coaches, you add in the very diverse group of student athletes that we have this year. Like it's a who's who of Ontario high school football. It is a who's who of the OSFL. Like when you combine those two ingredients, and for us as administrators, when we just look to, okay, what can we do to put you in a position to be successful? That's what success looks like. It's just giving them, removing, like you said, as many of the barriers, as much of the red tape, so that they can do what they love. That is that definition of greatness. And we have every expectation that come middle of July, Ontario's right there, in the fourth quarter, playing to bring home a gold medal for the first time, right, since 2014, and that's what drives us.
JT, I'm getting so fired up because as Tom said, as much as we're here to grow the game across Canada, we have our Ontario bias here. And so again, just seeing these names and knowing that at the end of the day, as you're saying, that is still what success is and where we want to be getting to. But where I want to kind of tie in off that in all the ways you talk about growing the game, breaking paradigms. Again, I also am in agreement with Tom talking about trying to reduce the barrier to entry. I feel like when Tom and I were perhaps more so coming up, there was sometimes a not stigma, but you'd see a Football Ontario guy. It's like, well, I know so many guys in the Toronto area who just wouldn't have had that opportunity due to the cost of camps and things like that. Are you really the top guy and all these things? So I love all those efforts, but in taking this sort of larger picture approach of what makes great athletes, putting the person before the athlete, just kind of going through again all the amazing things with Football Ontario right now, that for folks who aren't staying up to date, that just to get a chance to talk about these things is also the partnership with the Canadian Mental Health Association that Football Ontario has bridged for a 3-year partnership. Without the 55, we spent a bit of time over with COVID in the year sort of 2020 and 2021 of talking about that connection. It's obviously been something over the last 5-10 years that within sport and extended into, again, culture writ large, there's been more conversation about mental health, taking a look at that full picture of what makes us human. What drove this partnership, and what is your goal getting out of this partnership?
Yeah, that's a great question. And what sort of drove it was this idea of one of our pillars being wellness, right? And it's interesting that values, pillars, whatever you want to call them, they're interesting, right? Because if you take a look at any organization, any website, any organization has what they say is important to them, right? And that's what values and pillars are. Like at the end of the day, what's important to you? But we always like to take it a step deeper, right? Like, what does this look like in action? What does it look like if we're talking, again, I know many of your listeners are high quality athletes and coaches, people that have been involved in sport. But what does this actually look like in practice? Right. And it doesn't mean you get it 100% of the time, doesn't mean you get it right every day. But again, this is a practice. So this partnership was an example of our commitment to actioning on that wellness pillar. And part of that, and again, Zach, I know you're an educator. At the end of the day, in order to bring out the best in people, to bring out, success, to help them be great, to be excellent, they have to feel happy, healthy, and wealthy. Like that's the core of it, right? Like if people do not feel happy, healthy, and wealthy, you're going to struggle to help them, right? And it's understanding we all have times in our life where that happy, healthy, wealthy is sometimes we're doing great, some other times we're not so great, but it's really coming back to that. In terms of the partnership, again, it was really putting into action our wellness pillar. Two, it was really giving people that idea that in order to help them reach whatever their next level of greatness is, gotta be happy, healthy, and wealthy. But then also, and again, you both being high quality athletes and coaches know that it's great to talk about that in theory, but if we don't give people the skills, you know, if we don't give them the opportunities to develop the habits, the daily habits that they can take away outside of sport, again, we're not setting them up to be successful. So part of this partnership was year one was working with the CMHA to provide our Team Ontario coaches and leaders with some workshop training, right? To actually give them, the opportunities to, I again, I'm an educator at heart, right? Like the whole idea is like, let's challenge them to take one valuable nugget of wisdom. If they take one, if each of our coaches takes one nugget of wisdom, one practice that helps them to feel a little happier, healthy, and wealthier in their life, great. That is a great investment of time and energy and financial resources. So that's what it was really about, was about giving them that practical. And the really cool part is when they feel happy, healthy, and wealthy, they can better help and serve our student athletes, right? And when they can better help and serve, I know what amazing football coaches, more importantly, human beings we have, that if they're feeling that way, I like our chances of being successful, in the standings, on the scoreboard, medals. Like it's gonna happen. It's not a question if it's gonna happen, it's when. So that's what that partnership was really about. And we're very enthused to see how this partnership continues to unfold. And again, we're very grateful for Alex and Joe from the CMHA, their leadership team, for being open to this idea. And actually special shout out to our CEO, Aaron, for and how he kind of got on his radar was he was doing, don't know if any of you saw it, they were doing a push-up challenge a few months ago on the mental. So it kind of piqued Aaron's curiosities. So then that just sparked a conversation. How can we help each other, and how can we better help and support, the greater good in sport? And here we are.
Mhm. One of the incredible things, one of the many incredible things that you have been doing in your time here with Football Ontario is, along with that idea of proper mental health and just inclusion, is creating opportunities for folks who are not typically in the football space to really come out and to thrive. And you've seen that in some of the flag football tournaments that they're not necessarily just for men anymore, but for women as well. And you're starting to see a real insurgence of women who want to get into this great game, and how they want to contribute themselves as players, and even at the U Sports level as coaches as well. We see Carly Manners, we see Coach Taylor McIntyre, Kendall Westlake, all of them main contributors at their own universities. As you're striving for more inclusion, to include people like women or anybody else who feels like they may not have had an opportunity in football previously but now do, how are you evolving, not just yourself, because I think your mindset personally is right there, and loving people, wanting people to be there, but the structures of football and the paradigms of that, in terms of this is how it's been, this is how it's always been. How do you open that up to include so many people who are now getting to enjoy our great game?
Yeah, that's a great question. And two things come to top of mind. I think back to right after Flag Nationals that we hosted. And again, big shout out to Queen's University and Football Canada for just being such great teammates and just helping us to put on this massive event. Um, After the event, I sort of posted that idea from the Ray Kinsella, right? If you build it, they will come. And a lot of this is just, we live in a world, and again, a lot of the leadership coaching that I do is around this idea, like Zach said, challenging paradigms, challenging old ways of thinking and being. And again, not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but just being open to new ways of thinking and being. So it was, it's acknowledging the fact of we do live in a world that has trained us and conditioned us that I have to see it to believe it. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. But what if you actually have to believe it before you can see it, right? So giving Flag Nationals, we had to even have a vision, like a 1% vision that we could work with Queens, that we could work with Football Canada to put on the largest national tournament in Football Canada history before we were even going to move into action to do it. Right. So it's that idea, even if it's a 1% idea that, hey, what if? So from there, it's interesting how it's been this ongoing, idea to just keep driving towards the vision, right? And just that 1% turning that into 2% to 4% to 16% and so on and so on. So that was the first step, right? New ways of thinking. But then it's also empowering the next generation of emerging leaders, right? I think from a football on Ontario perspective, you mentioned some great coaches, Coach Manners, Coach McIntyre, right? They've been part of the journey. Like they are change makers. They've been challenging the status quo. And they are beacons of light for so many other, women and girls that never even thought it was possible, right? So that's part of it. The other part is I look at our Football Ontario staff, right? I think of our director of development, Emily Todd, right? I think of our manager of flag development, Olivia Ghosh. Like these strong and powerful leaders are these emerging leaders. Like it's been amazing to watch each of them navigate this journey, watch of them each, becoming a stronger, more powerful leader. And it's sort of that idea that as they do that, right? And there's some great support. Our director of operations, Tyler McNichol, he does a lot of the behind the scenes heavy lifting, all these social, all those graphic, like people sometimes don't understand that, there's a lot of people. I think of our sponsorship coordinator, Aidan McKenna. Like these are the next generation, of leaders that are helping to build, like you said, the infrastructure to make this happen. And for us, it's just continuing. And this conversation Aaron and I often have is how do we continue to provide these opportunities? How do we empower these young and emerging leaders to give them the reps and sets so that when Aaron and I move on, and yeah, we're not moving on, anytime soon, but we want to continue to provide these opportunities so that when we move on to our next adventure, it's better than before we got here. Right. So it's part of that. It's the vision. It's surrounding yourself with emerging high quality leaders, right? That can bring new thoughts, new ideas. They're willing to do the work. And then it's also creating those opportunities for them to learn and to grow into the amazing leaders that they are. So that's really what has helped take that initial vision and make it a reality.
And just another name, just to shout it out that I know you have working with Football Ontario in Joshua Brown, still on with the women's side of things, with the tackle. I know helping out with I believe the U14s for Team Ontario as well. Just an awesome human being. What you're saying, all that it makes me think of the turn of phrase about how true strong, good societies are ones in which the the allow me to say old men, old women. Not that you are, of course, JT. You're young and beautiful. But when old men, old women plant trees, they'll never sit under the shade of, which leads me to the last question that I want to ask for you, which is that a year from now, 5 years from now, maybe even 10 years from now, whether it's in this same format, whether we're just sitting around, just enjoying each other's presence, talking about where football in this province is at, the three of us, what are going to be the things that we're talking about that have really been the new paradigms that have been set and the things that we're striving for then, whether it's a year from now, 5, 10. I know you and your team are, as you said, you're already planning 2025 when you look at things like Canada Cup, when you look at Red Black. What are some of those things that you think the future holds for football in our province?
Yeah, great question. And I think it's a great question because it sparks that interest and that curiosity, right? To think bigger, right? Again, I'm a dreamer at heart, and I guess I've just learned to embrace that about it. The vision really comes back to this idea, like we talked about, the mission's clear. It's football for all, right? And it sounds warm and fuzzy, but really football for all it's about opportunity, right? It's just anyone that wants to be a part can be a part, whether it's a student athlete, whether it's a coach, whether it's administrator, whether it's a parent, whether it's a community partner. There's more than enough places, right? And again, I know I'm preaching to the choir. That's the inherent beauty of our game, right? It is a living embodiment of diversity, equity, and inclusion. There's a spot for everyone. Doesn't matter if you're 150 pounds, if you're 350 pounds, if you came from the most northern remote part of the province to the southern to the eastern, like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you've come from a family with financial means or not. There really is a home for everyone. So that and foremost, continue driving towards that mission, right? But really the vision is about this idea of, and we often talk about being the leader in Canadian football. And I would even sort of tweak that there. For us, we are already achieving some of those things, right? And that's not, that's just, if you look at facts as facts. If you look at us in terms of a membership, we are the largest provincial sport organization football-wise in terms of members in the country. So the growth is there, demand's there. Football's not dying. For us, now it becomes not only how can we be a leader in Canadian football, but how can we be a leader in sport? We have some great organizations. Like if you look at the membership of like Ontario soccer, we're not even scratching the surface of that. So it's really becoming that leader in sport across all sectors, right? To making football so that when parents are thinking, hey, I got a 4 or 5-year-old, what do I put him in? Oh, yeah, maybe it's flag football, right? And I think that's the thing that really drives us. Is it's not about being the leader in Canadian sport, because some of those things have been achieved. It's really about being like that leader in Canada, and then once we achieve that goal and that vision, we'll see where the future takes us after that.
Oh my goodness. I love hearing people's ambitions when they come from such a solid place like that. It just makes me so excited. And my final question for you, and along those kind of lines, especially when you're starting to think about having football being the main dominant factor, especially in Ontario and Canada in that sense. What does the addition of flag football to the Olympics do for you, do for your vision? How does that incorporate into what you want to do with Football Ontario?
Yeah, another great question. And I'll sort of give some context. So I met up with an old friend, someone who I knew during my university days. And part of that was he had been very successful in the sports world. He had consulted for a number of professional sport organizations. So really, I just wanted to sort of tap on this idea, like, yeah, it's great, like 2028, Olympics, flag football, the interest demand is growing. That's great. But how do we actually set ourselves up to be successful? Right? What you think back to uh, going back to the 2010 Olympics in Vancouver, right? To own the podium. Like it's, when you have a big stage that you have the opportunity to be a part, you want to make sure that you're setting up your leaders to be successful, whether they're athletes, whether they're coaches, administrators. So I really wanted to, and pick his brain and really give some thought, like how do we take this thing to the next level? Like how do we actually build the infrastructure? And part of that conversation was, until we get flag football into every elementary school in the province, we're not really a high performance fully yet. Right. So part of that was we started to figure out, okay, there's over 4,000 schools in Ontario. So for us, the goal is, how do we get as many of those 4,000 schools with flag kits? Right. Because again, we got to get people playing football. We got to get it integrated into health and physical education curriculum. Right. We got to get people playing, because the more people we have playing, it's like any sport model. The more the pool becomes larger, you can find unique gifts, talents, and abilities. So I think that was sort of that question. But once we get them into the kit, how do we actually align our province? Because one of the interesting challenges we have, and you take a great province like football Saskatchewan, which has a history of success both in tackle and flag. If you ever go, I remember Canada Cup seeing in Edmonton, they drive around a truck that has every logo of every major university CJFL team, football SAS, like everything's driving towards, one vision. So I think that's like, how do we sort of create that, but also understanding that what works in Saskatchewan, driving to two city centers won't necessarily work in Ontario. Right. But then again, how do we get as many kids of those 4,000 schools playing? Okay, what does that look like then? What does that look like in terms of school tournaments? What about for the student athletes and the families that want a little bit more, that want the travel experience? How do we create up a competitive travel experience that also is aligned with, it doesn't just become, okay, you can pay so you can play, right? And then how do we sort of align that in terms of what are we teaching? Could you imagine what we could do in this province if we were all working towards one, and maybe variation of one, maybe two offensive systems with common terminology, right? Could you imagine from a defensive, like if we had, common terminology, whether you live in Sault Ste. Marie, whether you live in Windsor, whether you live in Toronto, whether you live in North Bay. Imagine we had the same teaching, the same concepts, the same coaching going on. Like, I get completely fired up because I'm like, we would absolutely dominate, right? So those are those are sort of the big questions on how do we get more people involved? How do we create more opportunities? But then two, the other question is, how do we create greater alignment? So I think if those are things that we can continually find solutions for and get closer, the world becomes our oyster.
He is the director of culture and sport for Football Ontario, author of the book You Are Greatness, 13 Ideas to Effortlessly Bring Joy, Calm, and Peace into Your Life, the host of the Huddle podcast, available on multiple platforms and YouTube. So many other things, and most importantly, an individual Tom and I are lucky enough to call a friend. JT, thank you so much. I owe you so much from all the advice you've given me over the years, and probably even some royalties from the number of times I have told a young kid to remember that at the end of the day, football is a game and games are meant to be fun, because in so many ways, it is the most important thing for any athlete stepping on the field to remember. JT, thank you so much for joining me and Tom today.
Absolutely. And I just want to say to you and Tom as well, thank you so much for the work both of you are doing. Again, as someone who listens, and now I love that you're putting the videos up. I was watching one with Coach Tommy Kanichis last night. Um, it's just amazing how to see both of you, grow and evolve, and how you're continuing to share the stories. You're sharing your passion for football, and just continue to help grow the game, because you both are as much about this growth as any of us are. So just thank you for sharing your enthusiasm, your passion for our beautiful game with the world.
You are an incredible human being, JT. I appreciate it, my friend. Anytime we hear that kind of feedback, it just makes us, those long nights that we don't get paid for, makes it a little bit easier. So I do appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Alrighty, that wraps up our conversation with JT. Me and Tom will have many other conversations with some awesome people around football here in the great nation of Canada, and some other content stay tuned for on the Instagram page from Tom's Journeys Down to East West. So stay tuned for all things football in Canada right here at 55.